It's called Proving Ground. And the author of this book is right here with me, the author, Mr. David Tarver. Good morning, David. How are you?
Good morning, Brenda. How you doing?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. I thought you'd bring your copy of the book up here with you. But I want to tell you that I enjoyed your book signing last night. It was quite lively. Very, very, very lively. Because you're an engineer, right?
That's right.
By trade. But I want to get back to your childhood, and that's something you dealt with here. And you were the kind of child, like a lot of us, you weren't one that was a bully. You just kind of wanted to learn. Well, tell us a little about yourself, because I think that's so important to what happens here in this book.
Well, nowadays we call that a nerd. But at any rate, I grew up in Flint, and I was into electronics quite a bit, even as a kid. And I was into
what got you into electronics?
My father. My father was in World War II in the Army. He served in the Signal Corps. And he acquired a love of electronics himself, and he participated in the Aleutian Islands during World War II with the Signal Corps. He came back home. He was in Georgia at the time, and he wanted to continue his work in electronics. So they moved to Flint from the South in, I think it was 1950 or 51. And during the time when I was growing up in the mid to late 50s, early 60s, I was a kid in Flint, and my father had this electronics workshop in the basement, vacuum tubes, transistors. He had books on...
Did he have a job doing this?
He didn't. No, that was a hobby. So he worked for the Postal Service. And at the time, I think he may have been, his opportunities may have been somewhat limited back here, like a lot of African Americans. But he didn't stop. He didn't let that stop him. He participated in what he loved at home, and I actually dedicated the book to my father and to people like him who, they have a light that they want to shine. Maybe they can't shine it when they want to, but they keep going. They don't let that stop them.
And so he'd be down in his little workroom or basement or
exactly, what? Exactly. And he had a practical side to it because he fixed TVs and radios for people in the neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
And so he got some income from that, some additional income. So it wasn't just a hobby, but because he had all this stuff around the house, my older brother and I absorbed all of this stuff and developed this love for electronics ourselves. My brother ended up being a pharmacist. He went another direction, but I stayed with it and became an electrical engineer.
So you knew, how early was it that you knew that you wanted to do something with this in your life?
I think I knew in elementary school, by 6th grade, but I really knew that I was going to go to engineering school by the time I got into high school.
Okay, so you went to what high school?
Went to Flint Central. I was Flint Central Indian at the time. They changed the name to something else now, and now the school is closed. But
I know it's closed, but I heard a remarkably funny story about a basketball game last night, and where you were on the basketball team, and you played Pontiac Central, and Campy Russell.
That's right. He ended my career in organized basketball one night. That was the first game of my senior year. I was a starter, and in my junior year, I had done a pretty good job guarding him. So my coach said, "Okay, you guard him again this year." And I thought I was gonna make my name with that. And Campy came out and scored like 8 points in the first minute. And my coach yelled from the side.
Were you supposed to be guarding him?
I was guarding, yeah, right.
God.
He probably couldn't have made that many points if I wasn't guarding. But I heard my coach from the sideline, "Get Tarver out of there!"
So that was the end of that. That was
it.
That was it. No intramurals, nothing else. You took up golf.
Well, I developed a lot of splinters on my behind,
from riding that bench.
That's right.
That bench. So you went away you went to GMI. And there was something that I heard that I really liked the idea of. Once was GMI closing then when you went to Michigan, or what?
No, it was 1973, and that was the time of the first oil shock if you recall.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah,
People's
gas
gas
lines
was
and all
going
that
up
kind
to 36 cents.
Yeah, right. Going way up.
36 cents. Everybody was waiting in line
Exactly.
for 36 cents a gallon. Imagine.
And I was kind of troubled by that, by the fact that I didn't see much of a reaction, around the place where I worked. I worked at AC Spark Plug at the time, and I had some great opportunities there.
Well, in those days, Flint had the plant.
Oh,
too.
it was a great city to grow up in. Had so many opportunities that people don't realize that we weren't just stamping out cars and stuff like that. AC Spark Plug had an advanced development lab that did a lot of interesting electronics work. And so I had the opportunity to work in there on a few occasions. But it just seemed that the people there were, a lot of people there, not everyone, but a lot of people there weren't interested in reacting to the times and reacting to the changes in the market that were occurring. We're more interested in kind of making money and just preserving the way things were. So I figured that at that time, staying with GM, as an electrical engineer, I wasn't going to have the kind of impact that I wanted to have in my career, and wasn't going to be exposed to as much as I wanted to be exposed to.
Oh, that's really interesting. Your self-esteem was good even then. That's amazing. No, really.
I was never accused of having a problem with self-esteem.
Well, a lot of people did, and I guess I owe that to your parents,
yes,
too.
definitely.
I mean, you have to owe that to your parents because a lot of people are kind of fearful. And it seemed like you were full steam ahead, more so.
Well, I attribute that, I attribute the electronics to my father. The self-esteem I attribute to my mother and my grandmother, my grandmother lived with us from the time I was born. And she always told me, yeah, David, you're going to do great things. You're going to do whatever you want to do. And, those messages got in.
Those messages going to children early are very, very important. Would you tell the audience what happened when you went to Michigan? When I talk about this, I mean, you went there thinking about, I got to get a job to help pay for my education, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Because you didn't want your mother, because didn't your father pass?
Yes, my father passed my first semester, at the beginning of my first semester at Michigan. He contracted cancer earlier that year, and 6 months later, in September of '73, he passed away. And it just happened to coincide with when I was transferring to Michigan. And I called down to the University of Michigan, called the dean's office, and tried to arrange a job going in, because I was accustomed to that from General Motors, this co-op experience, getting some practical experience, but also because I wanted to make some money to help pay tuition, which was at the time a whopping $275 a semester.
I know, imagine.
But at any rate, I got a job in what was called the Bioelectrical Sciences Lab under a professor by the name of William J. Williams. It was a great help and helped me get into the environment there at the University of Michigan.
So you felt that you really had to work?
Well, I didn't really feel, my mother was willing to pay whatever expenses I had. She's always been a tremendous supporter, but I wanted to have some spending money too.
Right.
And I also wanted to get that experience of, to continue to get work experience because I knew at that time that I was going to start my own business.
Okay, questions. Had you encountered any difficulty with anything up till then? I mean, okay, you're in college now. Had you encountered any kind of difficulty on your way? Because it seems like it was pretty smooth sailing for you.
It was for the most part. I mean, I think, like many people, starting in 7th grade, 8th grade, you start to develop this racial awareness. And at the time, again, it was a tumultuous time. We had the riots here in Detroit in the late 60s and 67. We had disturbances in Flint. We had protests for open housing, this kind of thing. So I was racially aware. And I had an experience in the science fair when I was in high school where I felt I was deprived of first place. I achieved second place. I felt I was deprived of a trip to the National Science Fair. And at the time, I thought there was some racial motivation there, either institutional or direct. But, one of the things I talk about in the book is that one of the difficult things for African Americans is that when you run into situations, you really don't know what the cause is.
Right.
And in some ways, it doesn't matter what the cause is, because if you're determined, you have to deal with it. But you just don't know, and it causes some concern. So I had situations like that, coming along. But I had a great support. I had lots of people helping me, of white and black folks helping me in Flint. And so I was able to deal with whatever came up.
Okay. So after Michigan,
Yes.
you went to New Jersey, or?
Yes, I went to work for a place called Bell Telephone Laboratories. It's the place
Bell Telephone. I remember them.
the Bell system, Mount Bell. Yeah, and Bell Labs was the research and development arm of the Bell system, which was the AT&T monopoly. And it was a great place. I mean, it was the place, if you're an electrical engineer, that was the place to work. It would be as if if you were a software development engineer, maybe the place to work now would be Google.
Okay.
But Bell Labs was the place to work. It's the place where the transistor was invented. Digital communications was invented there. Things like the modem, data modems, all this sort of thing. So it was a tremendous experience to work there.
So how long did you work there before you decided to, well, let me do something else? Were you bored or what? What's going on with you?
Well, when I started there, my intent was to work there for 2 years.
Yeah.
To get promoted to manager after 1 year, and to leave after 2 years and start my business.
Hear that, audience? I mean, he's going to work, then he was going to leave.
I was going to work there simply for the experience, and I told my manager this, when he hired me. I said, I'm not here to stay.
Oh, you told him?
I told him my ultimate goal is to start a business, but he wasn't concerned, because a lot of people come in saying that, and they get there and they like it, and they like the salary, and they like the opportunities, and they stay. So I ended up staying for 7 years.
Oh.
And I became a manager after 4 years. But after 7 years, the time was right to take that step out and start a business.
Okay, what kind of business was it you were going to start? What were you, wait a minute, I think I remember something about a synthesizer.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about the synthesizer. First, what is a synthesizer? I think we all kind of know. But,
Well, in this case, it was a music synthesizer. What a music synthesizer does is it creates sounds electronically using nowadays computer technology.
But it creates all sorts of sounds.
Exactly. You can create space age kinds of sounds, or you can synthesize something that sounds like a piano or a trumpet or whatever. And I became fascinated with music synthesizers when I was still in college. I went to by accident, I went to a electronic music concert at General Motors Institute. I stumbled on it one night, and there were Moog synthesizers there on the stage, and I was just transfixed, by what I saw. And so I left that concert and said, that's what I want to do. I want to build music synthesizers for my career. And so when I went to Michigan, I continued, and my master's thesis at Michigan was the design and construction of a digital electronic music synthesizer.
Didn't your professor bring that last night?
He actually came to the book party last night and brought an excerpt from my report, which he said he reminded me it was quite voluminous, but he brought that. I couldn't believe he saved that, because that was, going on 30 years ago.
Yeah, but what I was surprised about, I thought he was going to give it to you. He put it right back in his folder and took it with him.
Well, he promised to.
I said, my God. Well, anyway.
Well, he was the first African American professor in the College of Engineering,
Yes.
and he's quite a story.
He's quite a story, and his
Leo
family is
McAtee.
quite a story also.
Yes,
Very
quite talented.
Very talented.
So I was lucky to be associated with him and to be mentored by him there.
Right.
Great opportunities from that.
So, anyway, with the synthesizer, this is one of the things you were going to do.
Yes.
And you had this wonderful experience with Stevie Wonder.
Well, yeah, sort of an experience with
Sort
Stevie
of,
Wonder.
but you know, what I got from this, the Stevie Wonder story is that Stevie Wonder was like your inspiration.
Definitely. From the time I was a young kid. I started, growing up in Flint, Motown, Stevie Wonder, all
I
that.
know.
That's like the soundtrack of your life.
Yes.
You know very well.
Yeah, you know,
And so Stevie Wonder was one of the first people to adopt this synthesizer technology and incorporate it in his music. I remember an album, Music of My Mind. That Stevie, he wrote all the songs on there, and he used synthesizers extensively in there. And then Talking Book and on, Intervisions.
Songs in the Key.
Oh my
Life.
God, that was, to me, that's still the best album of all time.
All time. All I need.
And
I mean, that's not on
don't
that
start
one.
me singing now.
No, I am. You just wait. But anyway, so the synthesizer, you wanted to get it to people like that, but you weren't able to, right?
Right. I continued working on the synthesizer after I left the University of Michigan, and I got it pretty much finished. And I tell a story in the book where one night I sitting in my apartment, and Stevie Wonder comes by, and he looks at my synthesizer. He loves it. We play some songs together. We sing together. And I get up the next morning and realize that was all just a dream.
All just a dream. You wanted it so bad it was a dream.
Yeah.
So you decided to get out of that business?
I got out of that business, but I was able to use the same technology that was in the synthesizer, incorporate that technology into a device called a telephone network simulator. I was, in effect, synthesizing the conditions that occur on a telephone line connection. Using that same technology, sell a product that costs more money and sell it to corporations that
So this
have a
was
good
your
amount of money.
business?
That was the business that we started. That was
So
our first
you
product.
and tell us about your partners.
Well, there were a couple of other African
Were
American
they
guys.
partners or
We
what?
had a corporation. They were co-founders, co-shareholders. They were younger guys in the group that I was working at Bell Labs. At that time, again, this was like the first wave of African American engineers coming into corporate America, and Bell Labs went about this in an innovative way. They brought in people from all over the world, some of the best African American engineers and scientists, and we had people of all different backgrounds there coming in at the time, Asian engineers and engineers from all over the place, a lot of women engineers coming in at that time.
What was your company called?
My company was called Telecom Analysis Systems. We left Bell Labs and went to work in my basement. I had to entice these guys to come and work in the basement of my home, and both of them had just gotten married.
Boy.
So they had to go home and tell their wives, we're going to leave our nice job here at Bell Labs and go work in Dave's basement. So
I can imagine that conversation. I don't know. But, okay, so they started working, but did you encounter any kind of blockages because you were black or anything? Or people respected your brains?
Well, I would say again, the main thing that was an impediment, I would say, was that we weren't accorded credibility automatically like so many people are. We had to prove ourselves, and that's kind of where the title of the book comes from. In almost every situation, we had to prove ourselves. People didn't just assume, well, here's an engineer coming from University of Michigan and another one coming from Stanford University.
Right.
These guys must know what they're talking about. No, they would say, like, show us what you know.
Right.
Once we did that, we actually had people who were our supporters. They said, these guys know what they're doing. It's great that, it's kind of new and different. We got some.
Now, what year was this?
We started the company, we incorporated in 1984.
Oh, wow.
And that first year was very difficult. We came down to the end of the year not knowing whether we were going to make our little payroll at the end of the year. But then I got a call from one of our former colleagues at Bell Labs. This was an engineer from Ghana. Mm-hmm. And he was running a group there. And he called me up and he said, Dave, I think I need one of your simulators. And I said, that's great. Why don't you send us an order? He said, no, you don't understand. I have a lot of money to spend. I got to spend it by the end of the year.
Oh,
Tell me how many I need. And that really helped us out. And it helped this group ultimately, because that group did very well. But that kind of got us going. And after that first year, we grew quite steadily. I mean, our first year, our sales were only like $100,000. Second year, $800,000. Third year, $1.7 million. Just went up from there.
okay, and you did a lot of business with the Japanese also, didn't you?
Yes, that was our biggest export market, Japan. We were selling to companies like Sony and Matsushita, Panasonic, Sharp. I said last night that selling electronics to the Japanese is kind of like selling ice to Eskimos, but we were able to do it.
You were able to do it, which says a lot about your company. It says a lot about your company.